So I actually wanted to come on here and actually talk about I wanted to do an album review. I was gonna do an album review. I was gonna do it in like its own separate video, but I figured why not just do a little podcast episode and do an album review in the podcast episode, and then if I wanted to I can clip it down the road. So today we're going to be talking about the band Knocked Loose. Knocked Loose is back, baby. Now I know it's been a while. I know that like this album has been out for a little while now. Not that long, but like a couple months now. So they just dropped a new album, and in my opinion, it's one of their best albums. So let's get into it. Knocked Loose is a hardcore band, or deathcore band, whatever, they kind of mix the genres. And they are from Kentucky. They came out swinging with their hard-hitting modern hardcore classic called Laugh Tracks. And that album, it's still so good, honestly. Like, I've been to a couple of shows, and like it just goes hard. And it shows their, like, that album specifically really shows like their influences within the hardcore space. And Knocked Loose has been around for a while now, they've kind of been making a name for themselves and grinding hard. And I just think that's so cool. And I think it's cool to see how they've evolved into like this whole other thing. They kind of like brought this whole other like unique perspective to like a deathcore genre. And I think that's cool because there's not a lot of bands doing that nowadays. They're just kind of, it's all the same type of shit, but this is kind of cool that they are like really doing something with this genre. And with this album, when this album came out, everyone was like, who is that? Because Brian, their vocalist, like his voice is so shrill and like the timbre is so high. It's just, it doesn't even sound real sometimes, and it's just insane that he's even able to do that. And I don't know if you guys have actually seen any like kind of content regarding Brian or Knocked Loose in general, especially Brian specifically though. Like he did this like Amoeba what's in your bag thing, like where he went to Amoeba Records and he was picking out records, and he picked out like all country artists. Like I just think that's like underground country artists too on top of that. Like I just think that's hilarious that he's like into like underground country music. I don't know, just I didn't expect that after hearing his voice on these records, because it's a whole other level. Now, with every record they've released like a handful of records now, and I feel like they've grown and gotten better each record. Each record has kind of evolved into something else, and I really enjoy that about them. They just like have been putting in a lot of work and effort into making their own unique sound and their own unique place in this like scene or this industry and this genre that like I think it's really special, and they put a lot of work into it, and I think it's paying off. So they started out, like I said, being pretty much like just hardcore. I mean, there was like a hint of like maybe they could do deathcore, but like it was mostly just hardcore. And when you hear listen to like any layman out there, they would probably be like what's the difference between hardcore and deathcore? But there is like a huge difference in my opinion. Like I feel like if you play this new record back to back with Laugh Tracks, you can hear the difference between the genres, because Laugh Tracks is way more hardcore based than their newer album here that we're going to be getting into. In 2021, they went full on into their heavier toned deathcore sound with their EP/record called A Tear in the Fabric of Life. It featured some really cool sound effects and hard-hitting elements that like they have kind of like shown to like evolve into doing this like more cinematic piece with their sound, and I really like that. I feel like it's And I feel like they're just like, there's not a lot of hardcore elevated bands out there that are doing this type of stuff. Hardcore is like pretty like, they just like play, they just grab an instrument and they just start playing kind of thing. This is like, they're really like handcrafting these songs, and I feel like there's a lot of effort being put into it, and I really like that about them. Sorry. And these themes are definitely a lot heavier in this album. They definitely were trying to say something with this album, and I feel like everyone heard it. They were trying to make sure that everyone was taking them seriously. Now, some were wondering if they could have followed that up with something on par with that. So they ended up releasing their newest album, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to, and let's just say this album absolutely fucking rips. It is a top tier Knocked Loose album. It is so good. These tracks here are definitely more in the vein of like a cinematic, like the cinematic deathcore vibe that they were bringing on their last EP, but there are definitely still elements there of hardcore, specifically hardcore, just like the type of riffage they're doing and the type of breakdowns, and some of their songs are really short. In fact, I think this record has the shortest Knocked Loose song and the longest Knocked Loose song, which is pretty interesting. But this album overall, it is short. It is sweet. It is so good. They got right to the point. They said what they needed to say, and they dropped this album, and there you go. The screaming vocals literally sound pained at times. Like, it literally sounds like he's in pain, but I feel like that adds to the overall vibe and the overall feeling of these songs. Like, Brian is just a really good vocalist, and it was something that was definitely not like traditional in the hardcore space. There were some people that were doing like higher screams, but a lot of the screaming was just in your face, just like, you know, like beat down hardcore type shit. But this is definitely a different take on it. It's almost like screamo screaming, but like mixed with like, I don't know, just it's like a lot better. I feel like, in my opinion, it's just really good. He's so on top of the game here with this. He has so much control over his voice. And it sounds good even like live, when the live videos happen. Like, he's still crushing it out there, which is pretty hard to say for some bands, even other bands in this scene. And it's not to like knock on other bands, like, you know, maybe listen, screaming at the top of your lungs for literally like an hour every night and then touring for like 30 dates, and it's like that, your voice is going to be dead after a while, man. So I totally like, listen, respect where respect should be given. These other bands in this genre, like especially like a band like Dying Wish, for example, like there are some videos of them where Emma, the singer, killing it, like sounds just like the record. Then there's some other ones where her voice isn't all there, but that isn't any, like, that's not like, oh, she doesn't have the talent, or she just doesn't sound good, or they're manufacturing it for the record. It's literally because they're touring and going so hard every night, and it's just hard to keep up the pace and hard to keep up the sounds every single night. So there you like, that's why like a lot of these bands, like that's why they sound like that live, but like they're still really killing it. I've seen a lot of live videos specifically of Knocked Loose, and they actually sound really good. And then I see like the crowds that they're playing to, and is it just me? And listen, I'm not trying to like bash anyone. Is it just me, or like are they like not playing to the right crowds? Like, I don't know. It's kind of started with them like going, they did some kind of tour with like a pop singer or something, or some kind of weird tour where they went and they played for like people who are like, they started playing for like crowds of people who like just like will stand there with their phone out, which is, I don't care about having your phone out, but like what I mean is like when there's a whole, like a type of place like Coachella, you know, like the fans that go to Coachella, they're not like jumping up and down and doing anything crazy. They're just They're just bopping like this a little bit, and that's as maximum of like what these people are doing. And that's the type of shows that it seems like they started playing. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like missing these other shows. Like, I feel like back in the day, people went really hard for Knocked Loose, and I feel like maybe in Kentucky, where they're from, they still do, but it's just like some places are really like, just the crowds are dead. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's just like this newer generation of people going to shows. I just see so many people out there nowadays, like, where they're just standing and they look bored. And maybe they're not bored, but they look bored. And it's like, I don't know. I maybe it's just like me. I'm not sure. I'm from like a different era, I guess. But let's get back into this record specifically. The snare sound on this record is fucking impeccable. It is reminiscent of some like older Slipknot tracks that people really like. This one is just top tier. It is like blisteringly loud, and it packs a punch. Sonically, I couldn't have asked for anything better from this album. This is like the exact direction that I wanted the band to go in. And I feel like they do have some really awesome features on this track, mainly with like Chris Motionless and Poppy. I feel like those songs actually are really good. This album just like felt meticulously put together. It felt like they actually took their time with it, and they specifically picked out every single thing that they wanted to do and say and put in this record, and it shows. And I feel like it's just really good. I want you guys to let me know how you feel about it, because I really enjoy that record. Go check it out if you haven't yet, by the way. They call me a god. 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 Let's go. I'm about to go off like a weapon. Fuel to the top.